All right, let's jump right into this. Today, we're doing a deep dive, an explainer, really, into a highly polemical, completely radical architectural blueprint for a decentralized society. The source material we're looking at proposes a massive shift from our current way of living into something structurally and mathematically completely different.
So the author starts with a pretty intense premise. They argue that we're basically watching our current society, which they call System A, crumble right before our eyes. And that leads us to a really fundamental question about survival. They point out that despite us having more data and more wealth than literally ever before, the modern welfare state is in a state of terminal decay. It's become completely disconnected from physical reality.
Now, to actually understand the author's diagnosis of why this is happening, we have to look at something called Ashby's law. It's a strict principle of physics and cybernetics. Basically, it says that to successfully manage a complex environment, the governing system itself has to be equally complex and adaptable. In other words, only variety can absorb variety.
Here's how we're going to map out this blueprint today. First up, the failing System A. Second, lessons from Project Cybersyn. Third, the headless organism. Fourth, asymmetry and the strangler fig strategy. Fifth, calculation in kind and island mode. And finally, number 6, achieving topological immunity.
Okay, part 1, the failing System A, the algorithmic tyranny of violent simplification. The text argues that our current centralized welfare state systematically violates Ashby's law. Because the state just can't handle the infinite, messy nuances of human life, it resorts to what the author calls violent simplification, basically forcing reality to fit neatly into rigid spreadsheets.
And here's the math behind that critique. The equation basically shows that as System A's bureaucratic complexity grows toward infinity, just trying to maintain control, its actual real-world regulatory capability is crushed down to zero. So the system stops supporting citizens and instead morphs into this punishing, monitoring machine. To really hammer this home, the author points to the Danish welfare algorithm Model Udland, which was designed to catch social fraud. Get this, it operates with a staggering 93% false positive error rate. 93%. The text argues this actually isn't a bug, it's a designed feature to generate algorithmic uncertainty and coerce citizens through fear. According to the cybernetic principles we're looking at, System A constantly hides its flaws to protect its public image. Because of that, its institutional reaction time fatally exceeds nature's absolute deadlines. The author calls this systemic tetanus. The bureaucracy essentially locks up, exactly like a cramping muscle, which guarantees cascade failures and ultimately total systemic collapse. Moving on to part 2, lessons from Project Cybersyn, the fatal flaw of centralizing the brain. Before pitching a brand new structure, the text actually looks backward at historical precedent to show why past alternatives failed. And this takes us back to a really ambitious project from the 1970s. Project Cybersyn in Chile was this incredible cybernetic amplifier. By mapping resources in real time, the state managed to coordinate a tiny fleet of just 200 loyal trucks to defeat a massive strike of 40,000 hostile trucks. Honestly, that's amazing. But its centralized mainframe made it fatally vulnerable. When the military coup hit in 1973, they literally just had to smash one central control room to kill the entire network. Which brings us to part 3, the headless organism, building a society that cannot be decapitated. To avoid the fate of Chile's project, the author proposes a radical new architecture for what they call System B. If the fatal flaw of the past was having a central brain that could be destroyed, well, the solution is to build a headless organism.
So the big idea here is how they adapt Stafford Beer's viable system model into these 5 recursive layers to make central tyranny mathematically impossible. It pushes all operational power all the way down to local nodes, like your neighborhood or a local food cooperative. These nodes act with 100% operational autonomy. The higher systems, they only exist to coordinate and predict threats, never to issue top-down orders.
Picture a heavy iron fist violently slamming down onto a centralized control room. Well, in System B, there is no room to smash. Because operational power is distributed across thousands of autonomous local nodes, there's absolutely no central kill switch for an attacker to exploit. You just can't decapitate something with no head.
Let's look at part 4, asymmetry and the strangler fig strategy, using thermodynamics to choke the bureaucracy. You're probably wondering, how do we even transition to this new society? Well, the text outlines a nonviolent, highly tactical defense that leverages what they call thermodynamic asymmetry.
This is wild.
by legally flooding the state bureaucracy with complex, automated legal inquiries. Think GDPR requests. System B uses a massive energy asymmetry. It takes just a fraction of a single millijoule for decentralized bot to send a request. But on the flip side, it takes 500,000 joules of expensive, administrative human time for the state to process it. This 1 to 500,000 ratio essentially forces the administrative machine to choke on its own rules, leaving it literally zero time to punish citizens.
And while System A is paralyzed in this administrative lockup, System B quietly executes the strangler fig strategy. Just like a vine slowly growing over a rotting tree in the jungle, citizens pull their fiat money out of traditional banks and quietly convert it into hard, physical assets. We're talking solar panels, land, servers, the stuff that actually runs the world.
Part 5. Calculation in Kind and Island Mode. Neutralizing financial and kinetic warfare. The explainer next details exactly how this new decentralized system defends itself against both economic starvation and physical sabotage from hostile actors.
By shifting entirely to something called calculation in kind, the author argues System B becomes completely immune to inflation or frozen bank accounts. To put that in perspective, our source text notes that in Denmark alone, 9.3 petajoules of data center heat is wasted every single year, just because it's not financially profitable in fiat currency to capture it. System B ignores fiat money entirely. It measures wealth only in real physical energy, raw materials, and human time.
But what if an attacker actually cuts the physical cables? That's when these local community nodes activate island mode. Remember that brutal iron fist we talked about slamming down? Imagine it hitting a glowing golden web, only for that web to instantly shatter into luminous digital fireflies that just seamlessly reconnect right around the fist. Using simple antennas and off-grid solar power, these nodes isolate into self-sustaining fortresses, boasting a 98% survival probability under kinetic attack.
Finally, Part 6, Achieving Topological Immunity, defending the network with math and pain signals. Here, the author details the specific tactical defenses this new system uses to ensure the network can continuously adapt and, more importantly, heal itself.
Unlike System A, which tends to filter out citizen suffering through bureaucratic political spin, System B uses direct biological pain signals, what they call the algedonic loop. If a local node runs out of medicine, it sends a pain signal that bypasses all the bureaucracy, instantly redirecting physical resources to heal that localized trauma. And a protocol called Gemini Blue checks the neighboring nodes just to ensure no one is faking a crisis. This matrix perfectly summarizes the whole blueprint. It shows exactly how cybernetic architecture strips a centralized state of its weapons. For instance, using zero-knowledge proofs to verify that, yes, you are a human who needs resources without ever actually revealing your identity or location. It completely blinds any surveillance apparatus.
And rather than hiding behind classified, closed doors, the author insists that true resilience only comes from actively exposing your flaws. System B uploads its digital twin to global hacker platforms, actively inviting attacks. By embracing this idea of bleeding in public, the system learns and patches its code in microseconds, constantly evolving its own immunity.
So, what does this all mean for us? It leaves us with a truly provocative proposition about the structural architecture of freedom in the modern age. If the math clearly shows that centralized systems inevitably collapse under the weight of their own complexity, perhaps the ultimate defense against tyranny isn't a political revolution at all. Maybe, just maybe, it's a mathematical one.